Our message is very, very simple. We want to educate the kids, not indoctrinate them.
Period. End of story. I'm sick of hearing this sort of nonsense from these people.
She doesn't want these projects in her backyard, in Warringah. She wants them in yours.
Ridiculous. You know? Shame on you people. You know? You've been here for 10 seconds and you think you're going to run the joint.
And I still find it offensive because they still keep on talking about how Australia's got this racist underbelly. No, we don't.
We should be energy independent here in Australia. We've got everything.
My confidence in Australians has just been restored.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Commanding the Narrative. My name is Stephen Tripp and we've got a full house today. I've got a very special shirt on that I acquired at the New South Wales state election from Mr. Jeff Grimshaw. Now, it says he's not keen about Matt Keane, but I'm very keen about this episode today because we're gonna all be fired up. We're going to be talking about some things that we might not all agree on. But I will introduce everyone first. First of all, Mr. Sam Buono.
Stephen.
How are you today,
Good,
Sam?
mate. Yourself?
I'm very well, thank you.
Right, you're fitting this another day in paradise in Sydney.
Another day in paradise. Of course, you're representing, I suppose, One Nation in a way, although you're a bit of a free agent at the moment, aren't you?
I think I'm a free agent, yeah.
Richard Storch. Thank
Stephen.
you for hosting us again, Richard.
Always a pleasure.
And you're a libertarian,
Yes.
lifelong libertarian.
Yes, although I'm something of a heretic.
And finally, our very special guest today, Mr. Jeff Grimshaw. Now, Jeff was the Australian Conservatives candidate for the North Shore and also the Libertarian candidate for Hornsby at the last state election and also the mastermind behind majorslast.com. So you're definitely not in favour of the minor parties at all, are you, Jeff?
I'm not in favour of the major parties. I'm in favour of the minor parties.
In favour of the minor parties, yeah. So why did you start Majors Last?
A lot of reasons. I think at the last election, people had enough of the major parties after the COVID scamdemic debacle, the renewable energy debacle, which is just getting worse and worse. A lot of people were done. They were like, I'm done with the Liberals, especially. I don't want to vote Labour and screw the Greens. But a lot of people don't really understand the voting system, our preferential voting system. So I wanted to make a website to make it easy for people to make their own how to vote cards, because most people turn up to the election on the day. They haven't thought about who they're going to vote for. They just walk in 2 minutes before they're ready to vote, take the first how to vote card from whoever's handing out, whichever preferred colour they take, red, blue or green, go in there and fill in the numbers and walk out and go and have a coffee and get back to watching My Kitchen Rules or whatever it is they do. They don't spend a lot of time thinking about the vote, which is tragic, given how much money the government takes off us. About half the money we earn is taken off us by the government, which in today would be, I don't know, about 30, 40,000 for the average Australian. That's not, I'm not talking about just income tax. That's income tax plus all of the other taxes. We have over 100 taxes in this country. And people for the first time had actually woken up to the major parties and what they were up to, especially during COVID. And there was a large cohort of people who said, well, look, I want to go and vote for somebody else this time, but I'm not sure how to fill out the tickets, the lower house and upper house. So I made this system where I said, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to put the major parties last, and you can do that in any order you want. And we're going to put the minor parties, especially the freedom-friendly minor parties, that's the UAP, LDP, now the Libertarian Party, and One Nation at the top, and then put them in a particular order, whichever one you preferred. And then as those parties were knocked out, those votes would still go to the freedom-friendly minor parties, and then the other independents or minor parties, and then the major parties last. so that it would hopefully try and ensure more people would get into Parliament. And unfortunately, that didn't quite work out. I think we got 2 senators in from One Nation and UAP, no lower house seats, but there was an additional 600 something, almost 700,000 votes from the 2019 election that went to the minor parties, specifically the freedom-friendly minor parties. So it shifted about 700,000 votes, which sounds like a lot, but we have 17 million voters in Australia. But it was a good start. It was a very good start, especially considering we had no money and very little advertising. It was all word of mouth.
Well, we can get into a lot of it as we progress through this interview. You wanted to bring up a way that people can donate in future. Is that right?
Yeah, because we want to keep it going, and we're basically we're basically bankrupt at the moment, and I need to do some fundraising because I owe ASIC some money and the accountant some money. So and I want to develop the code a bit further for the Queensland state election.
Yep.
And
so I'm just putting the link now in the chat. If anyone wants to donate to Jeff and put the majors last, they can head to what's this new site? Go Send Go.
Give Send Go.
Give Send Go. Okay.
Which, if you're at CPAC, the founders came along to CPAC.
Yep.
It's an American company, and they were the alternative to what's that other fundraising company that's very woke? No.
Oh, what's the site? Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it at the moment, but they became the alternative to that site because a lot of the fundraising efforts from Conservatives and anybody else that the regime didn't like was shut down.
GoFundMe.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So this is the non-woke version of GoFundMe.
Okay. All right. Well, if you want to donate to Jeff, please hit that link. If you want to donate to us, you can just head over to Buy Me a Coffee, and a lot of people have been doing that. So thank you very much, especially on the other show that we do, the ex-candidates. But if you want to throw us a few dollars, a few bucks, you can head to Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the chat. So, we'll be very appreciative if anyone chooses to do that. Just a little bit of housekeeping as well, just before we start. I put out, there was actually a post that was put out. Now, it was in relation to the Tucker Carlson interview that he did with Vladimir Putin.
Oh, okay.
Now, when this post was put out, I don't know what the figures are at the moment, but it was up to 194 million views on Twitter, which is amazing, especially when you consider how many views the mainstream media are getting.
That's right.
But the equivalent on YouTube only got 14 million views. Facebook got 100,000 views. So I don't know if that's an indication of how many people are using Facebook or the censorship that is going on Facebook. So I put a poll out through the week. The poll is still going. Now, what the question I asked was, in future, now I can only stream live on 3 platforms. So we do Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. I want to stick to Rumble and YouTube, but I put the question, would you rather us stream on X in future instead of Facebook? The poll currently on Twitter is saying 100% of people want us to be streaming on X, and on Facebook it's 69%. So we may have to bow down to the people, and we may be streaming on X in future. So if you do watch us on Facebook, that may be coming to an end. You need to head over to X, or you can head over to YouTube and Rumble and watch us there. But we may be giving Facebook the flick in terms of live streaming. We'll stay up our social media there. But
I just wonder, you said that 196 million went Twitter and nothing on Facebook. I think it's been censored. That's my personal opinion. But is it compared to what we have, what we get? Is that the same sort of percentage? Like we get 96% on Rumble and 2% on Twitter. And
Rumble is by far the biggest. Yeah.
I just wonder if Facebook doxing us. Basically,
I seem to recall reading that Facebook had been told to limit the exposure of
Well, someone was telling me recently, I think it was Victor DL was saying that the new algorithms, if there's a new content creator and they're getting traction, they'll shut it down. They only want established, respected people getting views on those platforms.
Yeah, but Zuckerberg was in Washington the other week, and he got cross-examined on what's going on and stuff like that, and he said there's no censorship. And
yeah, of course they're going to say that.
Stuff. But I'm just saying he got a grilling from some of the Republican senators in Republic, or was it the Congress? Was it the lower house or upper house inquiry? I think it was a senator. I think it was a Senate inquiry in DC.
All right, let's fire up. Let's dive into this topic.
Jeff, didn't you say you were going to change the name of Major's Last?
Yeah, we think Freedom First might be a bit more...
Freedom First.
Yeah, because what we also want to do for, say, the Queensland state election is if you have a decent Liberal candidate or a decent Nationals candidate, then you will go top. But if you are a sellout, you'll be going bottom. So it will encourage the decent Liberal and Nationals candidates, if there are any, in Queensland. And it means that they will put the any parties that were pro lockdowns and pro vaccine mandates and pro net zero at the bottom.
Yes,
all right.
I like the identification of enemies.
Yes.
Okay, Jeff, I'm going to start.
At the moment, that's technically under doxing, isn't it? If you're saying that sort of stuff, aren't you?
I don't know.
Okay, Jeff, I'm going to start with you. Should the minor parties merge?
They should. Can they? Probably not.
Too many egos?
Yeah, there's still too many egos, and there's still too many doctrinaire people in the parties. It's been tried I wouldn't say it's been tried many times. It's been talked about a lot, and there have been meetings in the past, and people have put forward proposals for the minor parties to merge. Unfortunately, egos have got in the way, but also the most petty minor policy differences have got in the way. Some party has said, well, we disagree with your policy on that, and it's usually a very minor policy disagreement, and it's like it's our way or the highway. No, we're not going to work with you. So there's a lot of headbutting in terms of policies, even though we agree on 80-90% of the policies. There are people who are just like, well, sorry, we can't be dealing with that party, and the other parties, well, we can't be dealing with that party. So it's a case of people putting their egos aside and putting their policy differences aside and working together on the 90% of things they do agree on. And look, the Greens and Labour have been working together for a long time. The Greens don't agree with everything Labour does, but they know that Labour is heading in their direction, and they can slowly reel them in to become more and more towards the Green policies. I mean, if you look just 10 years ago, Labour was saying, oh, well, we only want a 20% or a 30% cut. Now suddenly it's net zero. And that's because the Greens, 10 years ago, didn't turn around and go, well, no, we're not going to deal with you. They dealt with them, and then they just slowly reeled them in.
Sam?
Well, I think it's no, but what Jeff was just saying, the
question was, should they merge first?
Deep down, yes, but it won't happen. It's just as Jeff said, it's egos and stuff like that, and some of them got some different philosophies, or really, especially on economic stuff. I think one nation, more nationals, where the Libertarians are more of a bigger picture, globalist, free society, and where
in their minds,
but the UAP is the UAP probably disagree, but they go whatever the trend is in 2 years' time, and what pumps in and stuff like that. That's my opinion. But what Jeff said was more, he's talking about the Green and the Labor side. It's more than just, it's worth, I don't think it's, sure they disagree, but they'll vote, but it's more the other minor parties of the left-wing side. You got the Animal Justice Party, you got the Legalised Cannabis Party, and the Socialist Party in some of those parts of the country. They might not get on all, but they all come together and say, okay, we might have disagreed things, but when it comes to elections, get your people to have voter discipline, preference discipline. Like I saw Simon Holmes at court the other week talking about some voters and preferences and stuff like that, and he said, but the Liberal Party's got the UAP, One Nation, Libertarians that all vote in, but one bloke replied back to him, said that the preference discipline of those three parties is only 50%.
So we've talked about this before, but we'll explain it just quickly again. What we mean by preference discipline is, as Jeff was saying, you go into the booth, you have your ballot paper, you might put one UAP. But then 50% of the time those votes spray around. They might go number 2 Labor, they might go number 2 Greens, they might go 2 One Nation. It just flies off everywhere. Whereas the Greens, and we don't know about Labor because they've always finished in the top 2% of the time, so you don't know where their preferences are really going. But the Greens, 80% to 90% of the time, will put Labor too. So if you vote for, if you, or they might go Greens, Animal Justice, then Labor.
It'll bottom out. It's where the vote majors last says we'll vote them last, but it's got the way the preferential system works. It's got to land back to the majors somewhere.
Yeah. So what you should be, if you're voting for one of these right wing minor parties, you're going to go 1 UAP. You would go 2 Lib Dems, the Libertarians, 3 One Nation, and then 4 Liberal Party, for example. You can change that up. If you want to go 1 Libertarian, then you should go 2 One Nation, 3 UAP, then 4 Liberal Party.
But it's got to land back onto a major party because they're going to finish first or second in voting.
But what you're doing is you're giving those 3 minor parties a chance before you get to the Liberals.
True.
Yes.
But if they're sitting at 4%, and the Liberals are at 49, 38%, and the Labor at 33%, that discipline's got to get them over the line. Because if you don't, the Greens and the Animal Justice Party will land themselves back at the Labor Party. Because this might sound silly. The right-wing parties are more free-thinking people that don't like being told what to do. Where there's a lot of Greens people who are either intellects or people who are under 25 from university get told what to do, and they say, yes, sir, 3 bags 4, sir. We'll do how the vote card tells us.
Correct.
To do. Yeah.
Richard, should the minor parties merge?
No, I disagree. I'm all in favour of them keeping their individual identities. However, that doesn't preclude working together in some form of agreement or alliance.
We've talked about egos. I've got a very good comment here from Pauline, and we're getting some really great comments, so keep it up, everyone watching at home. She says, the members and supporters need to let the egos know how they feel, and I've been saying that all along. If the minor parties are going to merge, it's going to happen at a candidate and member volunteer level. It's not going to happen from the top. The people at, I suppose you would say, our level, and we're all in different parties, and we get along. That's where it's going to have to happen, and we have to. And I've heard it. I think even I don't want to say this because I might get it wrong, but someone was saying once that if you are a member of, say, One Nation and they refuse to merge with the other parties or work with the other parties, you say, well, we're not going to help you out in the polling business. We're not going to hand out how to vote cards for you. We're not going to give you donations. We're not, and use your power as a member to put pressure on them to get what you want done.
We were at the meeting a couple of weeks for Australia Day at Maryland's, where we were with Craig Kelly, and I got the impression what Craig was saying after the meeting, and Ralph Babette was there too. They said they do work together well with Pauline and Malcolm Roberts and Ralph Babette. Those sort of people will do coordinate in Parliament.
Yeah,
they do get on. But when it comes to the problem is this. Out of those 3 parties, really 2 of the parties are basically private parties.
Yeah.
One UAP and One Nation. They don't have a party structure. They've got numbers. UAP got the financial strength. One Nation has more of has got name recognition.
They're basically fascist. They're fascist parties, aren't they? You have a leader, either it be a Clive Palmer or Pauline Hanson, and they run the show.
Yeah, that's right.
The members don't get a vote.
That's right. Yeah, where the model of the Libertarians is based on the merit.
I actually want to make a correction to that. I don't think they're fascist parties at all. I think they're authoritarian parties, dictatorial parties, but they're not fascist.
What's the difference?
Fascist is an alliance of government and big business. And yeah, that's a
I agree.
Okay.
I agree with Richard.
That's a classic definition.
They're dictatorial.
Yeah, well,
what Richard says is correct. I would more agree with Richard than what you would say.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
When you say fascist, you're talking about their internal party structure and how they operate internally. They're not outwardly.
That's more authoritarian.
No, yes, just internally.
That's,
I'm not.
that's more authoritarian. It's top down.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, well, that's because they're a small party and there's only, Pauline and Malcolm.
You don't think it's got something to do with the overarching sort of impositions of their personalities and domination?
There's definitely that. But
if
if there were, say, 5 One Nation senators and 5
They don't want that.
senators, maybe they don't.
They don't.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of that from my time there. They don't want that because they can't control everyone.
Yeah.
It's easier for them. Then they have it exactly where they want it. They've got Pauline in there. That's what they want. The money goes to her. All the donations and everything goes to Queensland. They're happy with that. I mean, they've got some really great people in there as well. Malcolm Roberts and Sarah Game in South Australia. They're fantastic. But if you get too many, and we saw with Mark Latham, if he steps out of line, they get rid of him.
Well, what you could say is that One Nation is actually the Queensland party. It's really a Queensland centric party. They don't really care about the rest of the country, do they?
It's hard in a country this size.
I think they like having the Mark Lathams there and the Sarah Games there, and they would like to have
on their terms.
And the lad,
yes,
on their terms. That's exactly right.
On their terms. And the moment it started to be a little different, it was like, oh God, we can't have this.
We've got a comment here from one of your favorites, Richard Tony. She said, Richard is spot on. They are authoritarian. They don't want a structure.
Where's Tony been lately? I haven't seen her for a while. Where are you lurking, Tony?
Can I just go back to what Sam was talking about before on preference discipline? This is a really good example of how things could work and how close we get. So in the recent by-election for Dan Andrews' seat, which is Mulgrave.
Yeah.
So Ian Cook, the independent, he finished second. So he actually beat the Liberal Party in the penultimate count. Yeah. If just 1.5, I think it was about 1,500 voters had preferenced Ian Cook above Labour, he would have won. That's how close it was.
Didn't the Labor Party go primary vote of 40%? No.
I don't know about the primary vote, but I think in the second last count, he was only about something like around between 1,000 and 2,000 votes.
But the same, but the primary vote was 40, and what was the Greens? It was 7 or 8. So that basically puts them over the line. There was never in doubt.
Yeah, but any one of those Greens voters, if they put Ian Cook above Labour,
but
or any party.
But that's the difference, Jeff. The Greens do what they do as they're told.
Well, exactly. But there might have been other parties, or that people might have just filled out their own how to vote card. But if there'd been preference discipline in that election, Ian Cook would now be the member for Mulgrave, and that's literally how close it was. A few thousand, not primary votes, but a few thousand preferences where people put Labour ahead of Ian Cook. If that had been the other way round, he would be the member now.
Sure. Well, the Victorians missed their chance to,
Well, the other thing about that election as well is that the Victorian state election, was it last year or 2 years ago?
15 months ago, November 22.
Yeah. So back then, everybody wanted to have a go at Dan Andrews, and they had 15, 16, 17 candidates running against him, which was just absolutely stupid because people would have got into the booth and just seen this.
Although the theory's okay. The theory's okay because that's what the Labor Party do to Liberal seats. They want Melbourne Cup fields to try and get the primary vote down the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
But somehow in Labor seats, it doesn't work that way.
No? But they had too many candidates, and people would have just walked in there and.
But in Liberal seats, that works for Labor Party and everyone else.
See, this is the thing.
Where Liberal people are free thinkers, where Labor Party and the working class areas are rusted on Labor. This was my generation, my father's generation, my grandfather's, all rusted on Labor people.
See, but you're talking about Melbourne Cup fields, and this highlights the problem. There's too many minor parties on the right side of politics, and they're diluting the vote.
But there's just as many on the left wing side too.
Well, they're more disciplined, I suppose.
That's the point I'm trying to say, Stephen.
Yeah. But we can work. We can come up with a solution, a strategic solution that will negate that, which is running a joint ticket.
I want to talk. Well, before we get to
funny
the
enough, just coming back to by-elections, there's a few by-elections coming next month. You got Dunkley in the federal.
Yep.
And you got two Queensland state election seats,
and Cook's coming up as well.
And Cook will come up probably. He won't. When's their last week? He might have his valedictory speech tonight with you, or next week or two. I think he's
Who cares?
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say there, but I'm saying he won't declare it. So therefore, I would think the by-election won't be till after Easter.
All right. So I want to go through, because I think there's some challenges that the minor parties face currently. One's media, two's money, three's egos, 4 is organisation, and 5 is corruption.
You got anything else there? I thought you said it was a short list.
Corruption's a big call.
Well, we can talk. Which one do you want to tackle first?
Corruption.
Well, I think they're corrupt. Some of them. I mean, I was told, I'm not going to mention the party, but it's a Ponzi scheme. It's set up as a Ponzi scheme. And that's probably why you have many minor parties.
That's why it's a primary. It's maybe why.
And that's probably a big reason why they don't want to merge.
No doubt about that. I read an article the other week about the Greens, where you had the Bob Browns, the Green Party when he first started in the late 80s, early 90s, till he finished 10 years ago, and it's been taken over by a party of hardcore activists who know how politics are, and now they know how to win seats and the way they play their politics, and therefore, but they've got the hard nose about it. Where I think if we get past this generation of these certain parties who are private parties, if they decide to become a more open party, more member parties and stuff like that, it might have that ruthlessness about it. So as you say, they're happy. Obviously, One Nation and UAP are private parties, basically. If they relinquish it, which they won't, I reckon, this is my personal opinion, if Clive says, I'm not running next election, he'll just close UAP down.
Yeah.
And Ralph Babette will just be basically an independent.
Yeah.
Or he could line up some other party to maybe get into an election to go on top of the line. And I think deep down, I might be wrong, but I still think when Pauline retires or kicks the can, because I think she'll have to carry out in a coffin in the federal parliament. She's worked that hard to get in there. She ain't going to give up without a fight. I think she'll close the party down. I think she'll close it down. That's my opinion.
What do you think the biggest challenge that the minor parties have to face, Jeff?
I think media is a big challenge.
I agree.
They do not get the exposure that they deserve. I think we should have.
And you know this as a candidate, as a former candidate, you just don't get any media really. So I mean, in a federal seat, you have to get in front of 100,000 people. How do you do that without the media on your side?
Well, you can't unless you go one-to-one, or you can post literature, but most people don't read it.
You've got to spend, as the Teals did, you've got to spend a lot of money and cover every angle.
Yeah.
Get people on the ground. It's just a whole lot of things. If it's media, people on the ground, letterboxes, they covered every spot. Numbers on the ground. The money was there, but I'm just saying it was coordinated. They covered every base. It was media. It got friendly media. It got everyone here. Everything was, and that came to money and labour. Yeah.
I mean, Sky is sort of, other than the Liberals, they're pretty much the One Nation channel. So if they concentrated on a minor party, it was pretty much always One Nation.
Well, a lot of them got behind Mark Latham at the state election, but it didn't translate.
Yeah.
And Sky News is behind a paywall. How many people are actually watching Sky News?
Well, that's the thing
it's not anymore. You can subscribe
for $5.
That's still a paywall. I'm not paying $5 a month.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, but it's free. Free to air in the countryside and the towns. So that's where they should be running their candidates, because people out in the bush and in the towns who don't want to listen to the ABC will be watching Sky. And if Sky have Mark and Pauline and Malcolm on, as they often do, then that's the people that they, those are the areas they need to chase. But, how many times were the LDP on Sky in the last few years? Virtually zero. They used to have John Ruddock on a lot when he was with the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
And then even when he left the Liberal Party, he was on there. But I don't think they've had him on once. No.
Oh, he certainly hasn't. Oh, he's been on. He got on occasion with Bernardi on a Sunday night, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I can't recall him being on Sky anywhere else. Sometimes did he get occasional gig with Chris Kenny? I think he had a.
I know all I ever hear him on is Chris Smith on TNT radio.
Yeah, that's the last 12 months. But I'm saying,
what about Ralph Babette? Has he got on Sky much?
No,
and he's a senator.
No. Maybe he's been uncomfortable doing media.
He speaks pretty well.
He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, I've never seen him at a media. Have you been? Have you ever? I've never heard him talk on Sky or any other. Have you ever seen? Sit down, even with a soft interview, you go okay.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
I think personally, I think he's been uncomfortable.
Mind you, I just told you I don't watch Sky News.
The thing is, I spoke to Ralph Babette about at the other day at Marylands, and he was talking about senators should only have 2 terms, and I spoke to him after. I said, Ralph, it's taken you 2 years to know how Parliament works. And he said, oh, I think I do now after 2 years. And I said, mate, it takes you a couple of years to know how Parliament works. So your best years would be from year 10 to year 20.
Yeah.
It shouldn't take that long to work out how Parliament works.
Jeffrey, you're in for a rude shock, mate. It is. Everyone says in theory. Sorry, mate.
Well, I mean, are you talking how it should work or how it actually works?
How that actually works and should work. But I'm just saying. Now, I've spoke to a couple of politicians the last couple of years. I haven't spoken to John Ruddock about it because he's not worried about that sort of stuff. He doesn't believe in that sort of stuff. But you talk to some other people, and I spoke to a girl about it the other week, a Liberal person in a state house, and she said to me, it's taken me. I've been here only 12 months, and I still only know half the stuff what's going on.
I'm gonna ask this question. We've listed all those 5 things. If the minor parties were to merge, and when I say minor parties, we're really only talking about the 3, the One Nation Libertarians and UAP. There are others out there, but they're the three main ones. If they were to merge, would those challenges resolve themselves, or would they still be there?
Well, who would be leader? Who would?
But as we're talking about, would they get more media attention? I would say no. Would they get more money? Well, maybe if you've got Clive funding it, that would help.
Well, if Clive would say
egos, you're still going to have the egos there. Organization, well, which organization are they going to follow? And the corruption, well, that corruption's in every party, I'm sure. And I
don't think it's corrupt. I disagree with you full stop on that one. I don't think it's corrupt. It's just a different.
I would say there's conflicts of interest that are much more prevalent than outright corruption. There are. I mean, that's the thing with public money. When you've got public money, you've always got people looking to siphon off some for, their brother, their sister, their cousin, whatever it is, and jobs get.
And look, when I say corruption, all this stuff is above board.
Yeah, it's conflict of interest.
So there's ways that they can direct money that is legal.
It's not corruption. To a letter law, it's not corruption.
Yeah, okay.
It's just legalized corruption.
Well, there we go.
It all depends on the moral code you operate under. Stephen's
they're just doing what all the major
parties
parties
a little bit more flexible.
Pauline says yes, Babette has been on Sky Bernardi. So there.
John, yeah.
Ralph Babette.
Oh, has he?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. But not a lot of times, no.
So
I would call that a soft interview.
Okay.
It's not as if he was on, say, with an afternoon program with the Sky people who are down the line politically.
Needs to be Paul Murray and
no, I'm talking about Kieran Gilbert and stuff like that.
Laura Jones, people like that.
That's
so if
someone from a couple people from the ABC where you can defend, how to defend your ground.
Yeah.
See, Latham could go on Sky News, political people, and go on the ABC on the afternoon where they're going to do a hit job. He knows how to defend himself and how to talk about it. The Ruddicks and the what to say.
To the ABC.
Doesn't matter if you're on those programs to get free to wear to get exposure. You know you're going to get attacked, but you got to learn how to defend it and how to come back. Ralph Babette and John Ruddick would know what to do. John would do a better thing because he's had more media exposure, but that's the experience, you know. Where a Lathan would know what to do and fight and pull and attack at the same time.
Yeah,
and that's just experience.
See, I think if they merged, I think the media exposure would grow because initially, because the sort of shock and awe of it would be it'd be red meat to the media. The left wing media, which is most of them, would laugh at them. But that's good because at least they're getting exposure then. And
it'd be a soft laugh because they've all merged together. And the thing is, we'll all be working as one. Instead of having 5 people to do a pre-polling move, we have 15, 20.
Yeah,
would their vote
numbers
increase?
on the ground?
Yeah, I think it would.
Yeah,
there would be some people say, "I'm not going to vote for this thing." So, if it's 7, 8, if they got like the last election, they averaged out about 9% nationwide. I know one nation got about 5% nationwide.
but how much of that?
What 1.5%, 2%, Richard?
2.5%, I think.
How much of that 5% is real rusted on One Nation voters, or it's just people going, "Oh, I don't know who to vote for, but I'll just throw it anywhere."
No one votes for One Nation by mistake.
Yeah, maybe.
It shows a certain intent. I think you've got to say that.
One Nation. What people and a few people have told me is One Nation poll better when Labor on the nose than when Liberal on the nose.
The other thing about a merger as well is you'd actually, I know we've spoken about the weaknesses in all the parties, but you'd actually combine all their strengths, and they all have their own individual unique strengths.
Numbers on the ground.
Party.
Numbers on the ground.
Yeah, there's numbers on the ground. Then there's the money, which I'm sure Clive would be happy to provide. Maybe.
No, it wouldn't be an open budget. I would think they'd be more strategic. Get the infrastructure, and that takes a couple of years. Look at Advance Australia. You might have criticised them, but it took them a couple of years to get themselves going. All that sort of things like that.
But the UAP are better with structure, I think, and then you'd have leadership with Pauline, and then LDP would bring the sort of brains, I think,
the intellect,
yeah.
I think there are people.
Okay,
Richard might disagree, but there are. When I've gone to Libertarian or Liberal Dems at the time, there are a lot of people there who are more the intellect people who aren't really used to doing the ground game or knocking on people's doors. They're more the big end of town to a point of the businessmen.
I think I've got to say something here. At the moment, the Libertarians have been sort of deluged with ex-Liberal people who are highly conservative on the whole.
That's through the Ruddick situation.
Yeah, and they're not necessarily very libertarian. So there's quite a difference of opinion inside the Libertarian Party now, and it's almost like I'm sort of wondering if they can actually stay together. These two different sort of ways of thinking.
I think calling themselves the Libertarian Party was the worst mistake because it's put them in a box now. They can't define themselves because there are too many libertarian views.
Oh, but they can spend so much time trying to define themselves.
Well, yeah, but the voters are not going to care about that.
It's like a new ager changing their name, hoping to become a different person.
I think it was a better name than the Liberal Democrats.
Yes,
but at least when they were the Liberal Democrats, they could say, okay, we're what liberal parties should have been, or now that they're the Libertarians, they're confined to this ideal of libertarianism. And where do you draw the line? And I've discussed this on former podcasts or other podcasts, and I always use these examples. The first one was we were interviewing Birchall Wilson, and he was talking about how if the immigration level had been kept at 0 from 25 years ago, house prices would now be 40% lower. And I said, well, don't libertarians believe in an open society and open borders? And he said, well, that is true, but I'm more of a paleo libertarian. I'm like,
What the hell is that?
like there's all these different types of libertarianism, like, and where do you draw the line? Like if you're gonna go down the route of this Javier Milei and I'm
Well, that's
anarcho-capitalism and I'm gonna,
Well,
you know, it's
Well, they're at the moment they're campaigning it that way, that we're arco-capitalism.
yeah. So where does that where does that
and
you need
people
some
behind
sort of government to keep the society in check.
Well,
So where do you draw the line?
I haven't read the model. I haven't read the theories behind it, but I'm just obviously John's preaching that sort of stuff at the moment because it's, which I'm surprised because I thought he would have gone more on the New Zealand libertarian side, the ACT party.
Graham says in the chat, I agree. The libertarians can't seem to agree on their own identity. That alone makes them inert.
The thing about the libertarians is
sadly, Graham's probably right. They do need to stop talking about themselves.
yeah,
Well, they do.
yeah.
I mean, the voting public hate one thing above all else, and that is politicians talking about themselves.
I'm talking about more.
I mean, Albo's just got engaged today. I mean, do you think people care? Do you think people really are interested in his personal life?
Well, again,
him talking about how his struggle.
He's just trying
talking
to
about
jump.
media. He'll get a 60-second hit tonight.
He's just trying to jump on the
years.
Taylor Swift bandwagon.
Is he? Is that
I
it?
would say.
I don't think his new wife is Taylor Swift.
But, what were you going to say, Jeff? If you talk about the libertarians?
Yeah, I was just going to say that the thing with libertarians is if they try to be too doctrinaire, they're not going to go anywhere. They need to understand that it's a road, and yet as long as you're traveling down the road to the goal, then it doesn't matter how you get there or in what vehicle. But what the doctrinaire libertarians say is, oh well, if it's not going to be this way, then I'm not supporting it at all. And so, well, but
see, that's the problem.
Yeah,
if they call themselves the Liberty Party or some other name, they didn't have to be so confined.
But going what John's been going, following, as you know, we all follow him on Twitter and stuff like that. They're coming across at the moment. If they're playing the long game, I think I can understand what they're trying to do. We're a party of purity at the moment to set a benchmark of what we're heading.
I think John Ruddock is the perfect example because I would agree with him majority of the time. But it almost feels like he's forced to talk about libertarianism to define what the party is.
Because he's not a natural libertarian.
But if he just removed that and focused on the issues, I think he wouldn't have any problems.
Well, at the moment, I'm not probably talking out of school because
no, he's become one.
Yeah,
he's a convert.
They've converted. It's taken them a couple of years.
He went into the Libertarian Party hoping that he could make them more liberal, and they've made him libertarian.
That's right. Yeah. And I think it's the people behind him who.
It's like being at school and you put the good kid next to the bad kid to try and influence the bad.
Oh no, the people behind John. The people behind John are well. The people behind John are well-meaning, and some of them are tough ass bloody political people, and one or two of them been taught by other people from in the political sphere that are the hard-nosed political operators. So you've got to have a couple of them. I'm sure there's a couple. There's some ideologues and some hard-nosed political people.
Yeah. Well, the other problem with
I can give you a working example, and that's the new housing policy, which they think is just wonderful, which is where you just abolish all zoning. And you get someone like my good wife who goes, that would be awful. They're going to build horrible things. So you've immediately lost about a third of your voting public because they think you're going to allow people to build anything that they like, as high as they want and as ugly as they like. So, that might be a very nice ideological policy to just say, oh, we're just going to do away with zoning. Everyone can do what they like because we're the party of freedom. We're cool. It's not a great idea. It doesn't have any substance.
That's a pure what they're trying to come across as a long-term thing.
It's easy.
It's all like they've based themselves on and they've said this to me. They've said that we've based ourselves on what the Greens did 30 years ago of being a party of purity, and this is the line we're going, and we're not going to deviate for a while.
Yeah.
The trouble is when you're a party of purity is, and again, there's a problem with the libertarians is they don't do retail politics. They do policy, but they don't do the retail politics. So they'll come out with their philosophy, but then have either no policy behind it or a policy that doesn't make sense.
But I think John Ruddock is
Yeah, but
good.
the
I
Green-
think
the
John
Green-
Ruddock is as good as a retail politician. The problem that he finds is he has to go and like talk about narco-capitalism on the backside of it.
Yeah.
I think if he just stuck to the retail politics, he would be
Well,
very good.
they should explain the policy.
He likes talking about all that stuff.
Yeah, but they
He
should
really likes it.
They should do the policy first and then do the philosophy afterwards.
Yeah, agree.
You know, if people are saying, "Well, why are you making that decision?" It's like, well, this is the philosophy behind it, but you do the policy first and then the philosophy, not the other way around, or as in most cases, just the philosophy, and that's when you get people going.
But if they're thinking long game, I'm talking about 5-10 years down the track, and if they're tracking that and they're still staying in that line, they probably think, well, we're heading the right way.
But they've been doing this for 20 years. So.
Yeah, but at the moment, look, give John credit. He's the first Lib Dem stroke Libertarian to get voted electly by the people, not via a group voting ticket. So that's a positive for him. So a bit of self-confidence in themselves. Finally, we've actually got in by a legitimate way again into politics through elections, through the number of votes, not through manipulative of the group voting ticket. So that would give them confidence. So therefore, okay, we've got this way. And John, I've had my problems with John the last couple of months, but he's got in. He's there for 8 years. He doesn't really care about state politics. That's my opinion. But he's got an ideology, and this is what we're going to do for long term. I'm going to be the founder of this sort of stuff. I'm going to stick to this line. And I'm going to stay in this line for as long as we can.
Okay, I'm going to throw a curveball at you now, and this is a little bit off the topic. Is the party system broken? And this is not just related to the minor parties, but all parties and major parties, every single party.
Funny, if I was going to bring this up,
yeah, is it the party system that's the problem? The way that they're selecting candidates? Should we more move to an alliance of independents, maybe, where you have an independent in each electorate that represents their electorate and the views of that electorate? And then, they can vote as a block, similar to what the Teals are doing. But, you don't want to give too much credit to the Teals. But
they say that technically we're not a party, but they are. But it's just the way it's manipulated.
But it would be an alliance. So there would be certain core values that all of them would agree to, but they don't have to always vote together. They can vote depending.
Funny, if we're talking about the majors are on the nose and stuff like that. I've actually read something the other day, and I've looked at since the 22 election, which is nearly 2 years ago. What was the primary vote of both the major parties? I think it was 34 and 32, wasn't it? In 22,
32 and 36.
Was it 36? Was it?
Yeah, it's 35.7.
Okay,
30.
so in combined, it was 67, 68%. Well, the polling at the moment, if you average it out, Labor are on 33 over these and Liberals are on 37 on average.
Mm-hmm.
So they've gone from 67% to 70%. So that's a 5% increase.
Yep.
And I was just thinking, I said, gee, they've got a little bit back. And I was thinking, why is that the case? Everyone said the majors are on the nose. Why is that they've gone from 67% to 70%?
Because all anybody hears is Labour, Liberal, Labour, Liberal, Labour, Liberal. And the minor parties are far too quiet in the interim between elections, and they pop up 6 weeks before an election and suddenly go, "Hey, we're here!" And a lot of people are like, "Who are you?"
That's a point, and I think this is my point for what it's worth. They've had the majors have had stability. Albo was opposition leader for 3 years. Scott Morrison was Prime Minister for 3 years.
I'll grant you the semblance.
The point I'm trying to say, there's been no coups
of stability.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to say, since what's happened from Gillard Rudd and Evil Turnbull, of all what's happened in the last 15 years, suddenly since 19, there's been a bit of stability. So they've won. I think they've won a few votes back on stability-wise, and that's all. Because no one wants to read the 6 o'clock news and say, "Oh God, there's another coup after 2 years. What's going on in there?" You know. And I watched that program Nemesis when at the end of have you watched the third program? Have you, Richard? And what did Frydenberg said when he said, "Let's have when the backbenchers were going to Josh saying, 'Come on, run, let's take him on, and you can run in the election."
Doesn't want any more instability.
He doesn't want any more. Enough's enough. He said the Labor have learnt from this, and we've got to learn from this ourselves. If we get done, so be it. But we just can't have another coup on 6 months out before the election.
But here's the question.
So that's smart politics.
Would you prefer an alliance of independence, and can it be done?
No, I don't think it can be done. You think about 3 parties, you're going to talk about 150 people with 150 egos around the country in Canberra.
So
they'll be all on the piss like Barnaby has been on, you know.
What do you think, Jeff?
Well, what was the initial question? We were talking about stability of parties.
No, we're talking about the party system is broken.
Oh, it's completely broken.
Should have an alliance of independence instead.
Yeah, the party system is completely and utterly broken. And I'll give you a really good example of this. And this has been confirmed to me by 2 separate ex-Liberals. You think that the parties make decisions as a party room. No, they don't. Back in 2014 and 2015, then Prime Minister Tony Abbott walked into the party room and said, we're going to sign up to the Paris Accords. A couple of years later, then Prime Minister Turnbull walked into the party room and said, we're going to ratify the Paris Treaty. A couple of years later, then Prime Minister Morrison walked into the party room and said, we're going to adopt net zero as a policy. There was no debate. There was no discussion amongst the party room. They just walked in and said, this is the way it's going to be. Now, this is from, we need to start calling them the illiberal party, not the Liberal Party, because a party is supposed to be a collection of all of the elected members. And they've clearly forgotten what a prime minister is. And often the public don't really understand what a prime minister is either. The prime minister is simply the head of the government and the head of the cabinet. He's effectively the spokesperson for the whole cabinet and then by extension, the rest of the government. The prime minister is not there to make unilateral decisions and go in and tell the party.
They're not a dictator.
Exactly.
Not a president with full executive powers.
Will be like in America.
Yeah, so
most countries have got presidential stuff. Is that really what?
Well, we see the prime minister as a sort of president, which is incorrect. So you get people who are going, "Oh, I'm not going to vote for Peter Dutton," and I'm like, "Do you live in his electorate?" And they're like, "No." And I said, "Well, you're not going to vote for him, then, are you? Because you only vote for him if you live in his electorate."
Well, look, in that show the other day on Nemesis, Ken White, all the other backbenchers, Zimmerman, and all these other people said. They all said on the ground, I don't know if it's true. And I said, we like you, but we can't stand Scott, the president, Morrison.
Yep.
So,
But
that's another thing. But that's another issue. But I'm saying it can be countered to that sort of argument. Too.
So you've got a party effectively where you've got one person making a decision. Now, there's a whole series of questions here, like who told them to make that decision? Because I don't think they came up on it on their own. So who's directing them? Who's telling them that we're going to adopt net zero, and you go in and dictate to the party. But that's not the only thing. So that not only are they not taking into account their elected members, and by extension, the people of Australia that elected them, you also have this issue with the fact that they were not holding pre-selections for years and years and years. And that's when Matt Camanzuli sued them and said, we want to have pre-selections. So people are not getting the members that they would like to vote for. And even if they do get the members in there, those members are not allowed to make a decision on something as important as net zero and energy, which is a massive, massive issue. It's just being dictated to them by the heads, by the prime minister, and who's dictating
the same thing. Well, it's done by head councils and stuff like that, or policy people, or no different from the Labor Party. They've got the unions who are or a centralised policy situation. At the moment, the Labor Party are very disciplined that way. This is our policy, and that's it. We can change a few things, but on net zero and all that, they've got their own. That whether you like it or not, that's their policy. Problem with the Liberals is that they're wishy-washy. Yeah.
Well, I don't agree. I think they've got their policies, but there's rebellions against a lot of them because they're completely non-liberal policies, like net zero. It's like, of course, there's going to be a rebellion.
Obviously,
you're trying to be Labor light.
Probably, 40% of the Liberal Party believe in net zero, and they probably believe what the Teals are doing.
Well, who cares?
Well, if it's 40%, then they should still have had a vote in the party room and said, no, we're not adopting net zero.
Yeah.
But they were not allowed to have that And the Liberal members at the time were sort of looking around.
I'm sure
going, I don't
there's
remember this discussion.
I'm sure there's some people in the ALP said this is.
Oh, there
this
are,
ain't gonna work. You know,
yeah.
just, but if they speak out, at least if they speak out, they're gone.
Yeah, they're gone. Yeah.
Where in the Liberal Party, Bridget Archer can just cross the floor like any other day, and she's got free.
Yep.
That's
Right.
a party. If I was Liberal Party, and you might disagree with me there, you probably do disagree with me. If you're going to join a party, you can't cross the floor, as far as I'm concerned.
So, well, look, the short answer
you
is
sign
the
up,
party
you
system-
sign up.
I totally disagree with you about that. I want people crossing the floor.
Yeah, but the,
got-
look, the,
well,
the short answer
do
is
the
the
Greens
party
ever
system is completely broken. We are not run by Liberal or Labour. It's run by somebody else, and also you have to also factor in the public service who really run this country, and then you've got the corporations. In other words,
Sir
we're a fascist country.
Yep.
All right.
In essence, yes.
I can tell that we're starting to fire up. There's a little bit of friction. Richard's just been sitting there biding his time, and he's about to unleash.
Unload, yeah.
But I'm gonna probably put the cat amongst the pigeons now. Now, if you look at the Liberal Party and who they've lost recently, Craig Kelly, Moira Deeming, Bernie Finn, George Christensen, Russell Broadbent's just lost his pre-selection, and so has Jared Rennick. Right. Now, you brought up Matthew Kamanzuli, who's trying to push through democratic reforms, and I had him on the show, the other week, and he was talking about that, where you give the members a vote on pre-selections and those sorts of issues. And there are good people in the Liberal Party that are trying to reform the Liberal Party and bring about these changes. This is where I think the people that got behind the minor parties made a big mistake. During COVID, there was a lot of disaffected Liberals, and we've seen the Liberal Party primary vote go down and down and down to the point where it's at 35.7% the last federal election, which is abysmal, really. So you've got all these people that have flocked to minor parties, the three that we've been talking about and others. Some of them have even jumped on the Teal bandwagon. That's where I think they've made the mistake. Clive Palmer was talking about 80,000 people joined the UAP around the federal election. What did it do? Nothing. They got one senator, big deal. Those people should have joined the Liberal Party. All the people that flocked to One Nation should have joined the Liberal Party. Everyone that flocked to the Libertarians should have joined the Liberal Party and tried to reform the Liberal Party from within. And if the Liberal Party can get back where it needs to be, you wouldn't need these minor parties. They'd be finished. Pauline Hanson should be finished. You know, all these other people. Craig Kelly should still be in the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
You would eliminate the problems that we're facing now. We wouldn't be having this discussion about merging the minor parties and thinking that's going to be some big savior. Matthew Kamanzuli,
that's your discussion, not mine.
Look, Matthew Kamanzuli said it to me. He said, you can talk about the minor parties all you want, but at the end of the day, the only party that can govern is the Liberal Party.
That is.
We need to get behind the Liberal Party.
What Matthew's saying is correct.
I don't accept the veracity of that in a total sense. He's right technically, okay, but the fact of the matter is that the Labor Party got elected with 32% of the vote, and the Liberal Party had quite considerably more than that and still lost 20 seats. So who's smart and who's dumb?
Yes, but if everyone had got behind the Liberal Party...
No, if the Liberal Party had a decent relationship with the minor parties and didn't regard them as...
But they don't need the minor parties.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
Well, I
because
think
if
they do.
Reform themselves, then the primary vote would be 45%, and then the Labor Party would be finished.
Well, that's irrelevant. Yeah. The reason why the Liberal Party is philosophically bereft at the moment is because they don't know who they are, they don't know who they're supposed to be, and they don't know where they're going.
You're right. He's right. Sometimes Liberal Party know if they're after or after.
We know that.
Of course, right? So they actually need to be guided from the external. It's like what I said to Zed Zelja.
Who?
Yeah, Zed Zelja, who's the former senator for the ACT, Liberal, right? And he goes, "Oh, we're trying to change things." And I said, "Well, mate, he says we're hammering away." I said, "Well, you keep hammering from the inside, and we'll keep hammering from the outside, and eventually we'll get some forged metal."
But wouldn't it be better if everyone was hammering from the inside?
No.
Because what? Okay, you're all crowing about John Ruddick getting elected, but he only got elected on 3.5%.
No. What he's trying to say is that it can work both ways. the modelling at the Liberal Party at the moment is fundamentally wrong. There's got to be some reform.
Look at the T-shirt you're wearing.
Only
Look
in
at
respect for Jeff.
Look at it.
Okay, only out of respect because
look
Jeff
at it.
gave it to me.
Do you
and
really
he-
want to work with someone like that?
him, yeah,
Come on.
that's right.
No, just answer me.
if you
Look
had-
at that T-shirt.
And I predict
if you had good people-
great
quickly.
T-shirt.
I could predict that. I might predict that he could well be in Canberra in 12 months.
But Matt Keane wouldn't be winning his pre-selection if there were enough Liberal Party people making reforms within the party and there was a Democratic vote at pre-selection.
There
Look
is
what happened during the federal election. That's why Scott Morrison made his captain's picks, because people like Hawke, Alex
Zimmerman.
Hawke, and Zimmerman and Susan Ley, they were going to lose their pre-selections.
there is no way that in 2022 people who had just gone through the whole COVID debacle and the lockdowns and the loss of jobs and everything were going to go, hey, I know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to join the Liberal Party and try and reform it. Zero chat. Like it's we can talk about it in hindsight and say, oh, that's what we should have done. But there is no way that people would have done that, because there were far too many people who were damaged financially, business-wise, economically, mentally by COVID and by the COVID policies that were implemented by mostly the federal Liberal Party. There were also the state Labour Party policies, but people generally look to the federal government and what Scott Morrison did, and also the lack of people speaking out against the lockdowns and the other measures. There's zero chance that the 700,000 people that moved their votes to the minor parties would say, yes, let's join the Liberal Party, because after what they'd done to us for 2 or 3 years.
Jeff, I agree with you to a point, because I was one of those people. I lost my job. I'd always been a Liberal Party voter, and I went to One Nation, and I didn't have any strong love for One Nation. It's just the party that I chose at the time, because they were standing up against the mandates, standing up against the lockdowns. But through my experience of being within One Nation, coming out the other side of that, seeing all the good people that are in there as candidates and members and volunteers, and they're working their tails off, and at the end of the day, they get no reward, they get no thanks, they get nothing, and they didn't really get anyone elected either. We would have been better served trying to fight that fight. Instead of fighting that fight in the minor parties and getting nowhere, we would have been better served to fight that fight in the Liberal Party and tried to get somewhere. If we lose, we lose. We're going to lose anyway.
But if those
It's not
people-
a binary choice.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just not a binary
But
choice.
there's no other option.
Yes, there is.
There is. We can do two things at once, like Richard said. We will beat from the outside, and you can beat from the inside.
But you're getting ignored. You don't have any media. You don't have any money.
There is a solution to that. I've
And
come up with it.
I'm telling you, in a few years' time, both Labour and Liberal votes will be in the 20s.
I disagree with you there.
Oh, really?
Well, Labour
really?
votes headed
When-
to 29 very shortly.
No, when
Well, it was at 29 in November. It's up to 32.
When-
Oh, it's going
when
back
people-
down, let me assure you.
hang on, when people wake up to what the vaccinations have done, it will go into the 20s, because people will not forget who was in charge when vaccine mandates were put in, and they will stop voting for Liberal and Labour.
President Morrison?
What?
He'd be in Washington. He'd be working in Washington for the next 5-10 years. So I wouldn't worry
They'll
about
just
it now.
play
He's
Morrison,
out.
won't they?
They can blame whoever they want, but people still see it as Labour and Liberal.
So, Jeff, I guess you're under the assumption that these minor parties can increase their vote.
Well, they could if they played the cards right, and they're really missing the boat here. And this is why they need to either amalgamate or have some kind of informal arrangement where they don't run against each other.
Now you're talking.
Yeah.
You're talking about a joint ticket.
Yep.
Yeah, well, joint ticket. Well, you're talking upper house or lower house or what?
Both.
Federal, state?
Both.
Well, obviously, upper house, you have a joint ticket. Lower house, you don't run against each other. Hello, One Nation, Hornsby.
Graham said Jeff is correct. I don't know specifically what he's saying.
It just means about everything. I'm always correct.
more detail, Graham. More
I
detail.
think you can have lots of candidates, but you have to have a single electioneering arm, which would be like Advance did with a voice and like they're going to do with the renewable energy, so that you might have 3 minor parties on the ticket and then the Liberals and Nationals underneath. But you've got one campaign and all your people are decked out, and they might just have a badge saying that they're which particular party they are, but it's a central message.
Yes, and that's why you need to have that informal arrangement so that, the UAP people, they don't have a candidate running there, then they know to support the other candidate, whether it's a Libertarian or a One Nation candidate.
Well, why limit yourself to one candidate? Why not put three candidates in an electorate, and that way, at least, if you've got 2 arseholes, you'll have one decent.
Because we just talked about the preference discipline.
But if you've got a central campaign with one,
people are not going to, as Sam said, these are freedom-thinking libertarian sort of people. They don't want to be told what to do.
That's right. That's right.
I disagree. I think they can be directed. I think they can be led.
I disagree.
They can't be instructed. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, look, the statistics, the voting statistics show that when you have fewer candidates and you only have one minor party who's One Nation or whoever, they get far more votes than when you have.
Certainly, Pauline made a comment. She said she feels my frustration. Damn. I finally got some support on this show.
Really?
Certainly in New South Wales, where we are, where there's no compulsory preferences, I think it should be.
That's different. Yeah.
But in New South Wales, where there should only be one party, they should all agree that we'll run One Nation in Campbelltown, we'll run a Libertarian in Camden, and the UAP who don't run. Well, UAP don't run.
Yeah.
I agree with you. The New South Wales system is the optimum system, but if you look at Werriwa at the federal election, you had Tony Nikolic at the UAP. You had I think it was Victor Tay with the Libertarian, and then Adam Brooke was the One Nation guy. Yeah. And collectively, they got 23% of the vote.
Was it that much? I thought it was 18.
No, it's 23.
23%
of the vote. 3 parties combined. Now, what are you going to do? You're going to go to Victor and say, "Hey, we're going to run Tony here, and you're going to have to step aside." I mean, the guy got 9% of the vote.
Well, that's just have to say.
How are you going to agree on that?
That's the thing. Yeah.
Same with you, Jeff. In Hornsby, you were the candidate there, and One Nation. Mark Latham decides now One Nation's going to run a candidate, and if they came to you and said, "Well, Jeff, we're going to have the One Nation guy run now, or you need to step aside and run somewhere else," what are you going to say?
Well, actually, when I found out that One Nation were running, I wanted to pull out. I was like, "Well, this is a waste of time and money." So, but I'd already paid for printing and things, and I've got a whole bunch of supporters. I was like, can't really let them down.
Well, why wasn't this done deal?
Exactly. This should have been done
12 months prior.
Yeah. This should have been done. And we need to be doing this now with council elections in New South Wales and in Queensland.
Council elections are different because basically you run as independents. You can't have party line, basically.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is we need to be organising now and not doing what we always do, which is 6 weeks before an election go, Oh, does anybody want to run? Let's start organising it.
Well, if we're talking a New South Wales state election, now that Ruddock's in Macquarie Street and One Nation person is in Macquarie Street, that sort of stuff will be all done 12 months out. So there might be a bit more coordination from the top part of it out and stuff like that. They'll say, what do you want to do? Oh, we want to do this, this and that. And obviously Libertarians we want to do this, this and that. And then you work out and negotiate where you want to run and where you don't want to run, stuff like that.
Paul has just made a comment. I wish Pauline and Clive were sitting at the table right now, but that's the problem, Paul. They're not having, I mean, maybe they are in private, but as I said in the beginning, if this is going to happen, it's going to have to happen at a candidate member volunteer level. It's not going to happen at the top.
Well, it's hard to because, as I said, two parties are basically private parties, and one's a public party. So it's hard to tell 2 or 3.
Pauline's added also a comment. She said, "Put the egos in the room and don't let them out until sorted. They're supposed to be there for us and need our support." Well, I said that. If you put the pressure on them, say we're not going to hand out how to vote cards unless you're going to have the conversation about merging. If the members want the parties to merge, they're the ones that need to put the pressure on the party. Stop giving them donations. Stop handing out how to vote cards for them. Stop letterboxing for them. Stop volunteering. Stop wearing the T-shirts around the
I still don't think you've made a case for the merging. I still see that.
Well,
the
I'm not saying they should merge. I say we all join the Liberal Party.
That's fair enough. Everyone's entitled to their opinion.
I tell you,
I put the Liberal Party last when I last voted. So what are you saying to me?
You put the party that it stands for now. I just watched Nemesis, right?
Yeah.
I watched all 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And the people that were sitting there were not Liberals, the majority of them. So you could pick out a few of them that were probably Liberals, but
There was only one Liberal really deep down.
Craig Kelly was there,
And that,
Russell Broadbent, mate,
and talk about democratic process. He's been there for 30 years, Broadbent, and he did go for a members thing, a vote.
Yeah.
He got beaten 136 votes.
That's because all his supporters are in all the minor parties. They should be there supporting him.
well-
Same with Jared Rennick. Everyone, all the minor party people love Jared Rennick.
Yeah.
Well, get in the Liberal Party and support him. Make sure he stays in there.
but it takes 2 years to join the party before you can vote.
Well, then
That's-
get in there
that's-
and
get in
do
now.
your 2
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
2 years is not a hell of a lot of time.
There's no way
It's
I will be
an election
joining
cycle.
the Liberal
Yeah.
Party.
Hmm?
No way I will be joining the Liberal Party.
Can I just
Ever.
throw one option out there, one potential option that nobody ever mentions? The Nationals. Okay.
Here we go.
The Nationals in coalition with the Liberals. Okay. So they're the Nationals of the Country Party. Now, the Reckless Renewable rally last Wednesday, there were quite a few Nationals stood up and said, look, we don't want wind and solar here. We're opposed to net zero. And yet you're in a coalition with the Liberals who are all on board net zero. So I think what the Nationals need to do is they need to sit down with the Liberals and say, okay, you're going to make a choice now. You either dump net zero or we dump you. And if the Liberals say, well, we prefer net zero.
I think politically, I think they both need each other.
I think the Nationals need the Liberals less than the
disagree
other way
with that.
around. And
Their primary vote out there is losing too, mate.
Tony says, don't laugh. The Nationals is a good idea.
yeah,
I
look,
agree.
and
I agree with you,
I
Jeff.
disagree with you, Tony.
if they split from
usual.
the Liberals and then they are the ones to say, hey, let's have an informal alliance or let's do a merger. There's great potential there. Now, I didn't know a lot about David Littleproud until last week when I met him, and from what I'd seen of him, I didn't think too much of him. But after meeting him, I'm like, actually, this guy's he's got something. He's got some leadership qualities.
Well, they've got a factional problem too. They got the Barnaby faction and the anti-Barnaby faction.
Yeah, they've got a factional problem. But here's the thing: they could actually save this country. Nobody pays a lot of attention to the Nationals, but they could actually stand up and save this country by going, up yours, Liberals, we're not doing net zero anymore.
Should the Nationals merge with the minor parties?
I think they should put it on the table. I think they need to.
Should the leader stand up and say, hey, come with us?
They need to dump the Liberals first, or at least they need to stand up and say, hey, excuse me, can we have a debate about net zero? The one that we haven't had because you've just come in and dictated policy to us through one person. So we have a debate and we will see who's on board and who's not on board. And I think it will actually come out in favor of dumping net zero, which in that case is fantastic because at least we've got the Liberals back on one major policy issue. But if the Liberals say no, then the Nationals say, right, we're walking. Now, those national members, I think, they would probably still get re-elected. In fact, they'd probably get re-elected with a larger majority for having dumped net zero, for having stood up, and they could then run Nationals candidates against the wet Liberals in their seats and say, we're going to take you on. We'll preference you somewhere between the freedom-friendly minor parties. It will be Nationals, freedom-friendly minor parties, and then the Liberals. So we're not going to put you bottom, but we're done with you, and we're going to go with parties that want sensible energy policy and no net zero. So they could actually be the heroes in this, and they could end up being the major party, the major Conservative right-wing party, and the Liberals could end up being their little bitch with just like 5 or 6 members. And
we've got a couple of comments here, Barnaby for PM. So there's support for the Nationals, even in the cities.
Sure.
I tell you what, Nationals.
I'd like to make the point that the Liberal Party in Victoria and Western Australia has virtually imploded into nothing.
Well, I disagree
the
in Western Australia. They're doing some reforms in Western Australia.
We're still.
Sure, they're down to ground zero, but they'll get from ground.
Anyway,
Election in 12 months' time, they'll come back.
Graham says,
anyway,
to Jeff's point, now would be the perfect time for the Nats to take action.
Yeah. But I think the Nats could basically take over the whole state in Victoria and probably Western Australia as well.
No, they could absolutely take over
You know,
Queensland.
I mean, there's the Liberals
Well,
in Victoria
Demerge.
have got nothing. They're suing each other. They're behaving appallingly. I mean, then that could just come in and run.
Yeah. See,
But come back to Victoria. If Libs win Dunkley, all that sort of stuff would be at the background. So we've won something. It gives them a bit of confidence.
Oh, they've got a long way.
But I'm just saying, if they win Dunkley, psychologically they'll be saying the whole Liberal Party will say, "Gee, we're on the road back."
They managed to win one federal seat out of 37.
It breeds a bit of confidence.
you see, Labour are imploding in Queensland. What's his name? Laugh a lot. Smiles. The other day said that we're going to legislate 60% cuts in emissions. Legislate in the Parliament, so it will then be law. So again, here the Nationals have a chance to come out and say, "No, you're not." Nah, and right, we'll take this to the election.
Yeah.
So I actually forgot to do this earlier, but I have put the link in the chat if anyone wants to call in. Now,
we haven't had that. Is there many people there waiting?
It might be asking for trouble, but
no, free for all. If you want to come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hit that link if you want. You can use your phone, you can use your laptop if you want to call in and ask us a question or just present your views, add to the debate and add to the fiery debate.
More than happy to take the questions.
Yes. But Richard, do you have any I'll ask you this. What can the minor parties offer the Liberal Party?
They can offer all the benefits of allies and proxies. They can say all the things that major parties don't want to say, like the Greens always do with Labor. I mean, the Greens come out and say mad stuff all the time. You know, it's like, and what they do is they ventilate issues that Labor doesn't really want to bring up.
Mm.
So that's the first thing they can do. The second thing is that they can pick out someone to attack. And the third thing they can do is they can offer a different commentary. Again, same thing. It's like, and the other thing is they can funnel votes by attracting voters that would not vote for the Liberal Party, that will vote for them, and then direct their preferences. But you need an outside campaigner. You need someone like Advance to actually run the campaigning. And then you'll get a very different result in places like Western Melbourne, and you probably start picking up seats in the Hunter or Western Sydney as well.
Tony's put a question in the chat. She said, "How do Liberal supporters feel about Five Eyes participating in the illegal surveillance of Trump and 26 of his associates in 2016, 2017?" I think
he's a big boy. He can look after himself.
Well, from my experience, and we're talking about all this stuff, I've met, obviously, One Nation people, UAP people. I probably have more friends in the UAP side of things than anyone. Libertarians and Liberal Party people, and they're all very, very similar with very, very similar views. There needs to be a collective effort, and to Tony's question, I think most of them would agree on questions like that.
Well, I assume the first day of a Trump administration, /2, will be. There'll be some people watching behind their backs.
Well, he's got to get there first.
I think the first day of a Trump administration will be civil war.
That's what you want, don't you? You want to blow the whole thing up?
No, well, America, no, not really. But that's what will happen if he's elected. Is that they will set the far left loose on the country and everyone they've imported.
That's right. I reckon they'll find some movement. Someone will do something. They'll bomb someplace in Minnesota or somewhere in Chicago or somewhere. They'll just make another situation. And basically what Trump does. Will Trump bring the reserves in and reservists to control the situation where he let the BLM get away with it in Minnesota at the time.
All right, we're getting towards the end now, but I'll ask you this question. Now,
Can I ask a question?
yeah, sure.
I know it's on our agenda, but how many people were at the renewables rally?
I saw it.
Not enough.
Not
Not the answer.
Well, some people were saying
Some people say
1,500.
1,500.
I would say more, probably about 500.
Yeah, because some of the from mainstream media said between 400 and 700, 800.
Look, I know.
It's quite big, isn't it?
It's
Relatively speaking.
It's substantial, and I was at the 2013 rally where they were protesting against the carbon tax, Julia Gillard's carbon tax, and Abbott spoke there, and blah blah blah, and it was much larger than that one.
Oh, was it?
And they make a big deal about that back in 2013. This was much bigger. And look, the good thing is the people that are organizing it, they're grassroots people. Then they're not getting coal money like people were suggesting, but they want to keep going and move on to different things. So good on them, and I hope they keep striving forward.
Who made the comment about coal money?
Some dork.
They don't know what they're talking about. The mining companies,
name and shame. Name and
the
shame.
mining companies are going to make more money out of renewables than they will do out of coal. You've still got to
Who
dig
said
up.
that? Who said that? Coal money.
Just an irrelevant person that we're not going to mention because he wasn't invited to the rally, so he went on a little rant bagging out the farmers and saying that the farmers didn't do enough during COVID. He's gone completely off the reservation.
What were the farmers supposed to do during COVID?
I don't look, mate. Who knows? This is what is enough.
Just grow food.
Green derangement. Yeah.
You'll have to tell me after it's finished.
Pauline is saying we're not giving up. Good on you, Pauline. I saw you down at the rally, so yeah, you can't give up. You need to keep going. So, all right. So I'm going to put this question to you. So, John Ruddick was saying that if the parties don't merge, then the next step is to see which party rises above the others and become the third major party. I'm going to ask each of you, out of the three minor parties, which one is most likely to rise above the other two? And I'll start with Jeff.
Struth. I honestly don't know because they could all do it, but right now I would have to say it would be the Libertarians. I think once Pauline retires, One Nation's finished. I don't think Clive has got the heart for another go. He's been very quiet. So it's there for the Libertarians, really.
So it would essentially be the tortoise and the hare race.
Who's the tortoise and who's the hare?
The tortoise is the Libertarians. I mean, they started from the bottom.
What is the thing? Is what is their real vote? They got a new. Remember, they got a new name. There's no liberal in that anymore. So, as you know, some people say it's between 10 and 15%. Someone told me it's a third. You know.
What do you think, Sam?
Oh, long term, it's a hard question. No. One Nation's got name recognition. No one knows a libertarian name yet. But what? Who knows him at the moment? Who knows Ruddick at the moment?
Doesn't matter. It's a party. It's not an individual.
Oh, true. I'll give you that.
Whereas UAP and One Nation are individuals that happen to have parties.
Yeah. Can I tell you who it should be or should have been? Yeah. It should have been the Australian Conservatives. But if Bernardi had not thrown his toys out of the pram in 2019, if he just kept the party going for one more year, they would be the largest party. Yeah.
Don't like the name.
Why? Because it's got Australian in it.
Conservatives. Sorry.
It's a very hard question. That is that.
I'll answer the question. Libertarians will be.
Oh, of course, you'd say that.
What, the next 10 years? In 10 years time?
Well, as soon as One Nation hangs, takes down its shingle, it's like it's got 7% of the vote at the moment.
I don't think it's 7%. It's probably 5%.
No, it's polling 7.
Yeah, but sometimes what they say in polls is 7. We've known that when it's 7.
Yeah, but there's a whole lot of people that don't own up to being One Nation voters. Just the shy Tory effect.
Yeah, but stats say, look, we got told a couple of times during the New South Wales state election we're polling this and this, and never got to that number at all. You know?
Well, people will be less inhibited next time they vote. They'll vote One Nation more. I promise.
If Pauline retired and let the name back to a normal party and let everything go back to the states where it should be at the moment on that side, what Latham was trying to do, that would be at the moment. They'd be in front at the moment in the long term. Be interesting if One Nation and the Libertarians put in a candidate that they know. So agreeing, they could put a green on top of a ticket in any election, and they'll vote for the green. Doesn't matter if it's Sam Buono or Stephen Tripp, they will vote for the green. The problem with the three minor parties is that we've got to have a star candidate.
It helps.
But Greens have passed that now. Greens, they put Jack and Jill on it and they'll still get the votes.
Sure.
Like the two majors. Be interesting when there'll be a time, unless Rudd can get another star candidate in 27 or someone, or see Kelly will run in New South Wales Senate for that. That's a star candidate. Until you get a normal person they've just grabbed within the party structure, that would be your biggest that will be the biggest test for the right wing minor parties. Is that will they vote for the One Nation name or they'll vote for the superstar?
But Craig Kelly was a superstar, and his primary vote went from 52 to 7 when he left the Liberals and went to the UAP. Same person, same policies, same ideas, same media exposure. 52 to 7 because people are wedded to the bloody colour system.
Well, I've just made the point there. The Greens are the same thing. Greens that Jack and Jill can be on top of the ticket and they'll still get the vote.
Yeah, even more to my point that we should all be in the Liberal Party. Jeff, this will encourage you. Tony says, absolutely, Jeff. The Australian Conservative Party was the go-to for disgruntled Liberal voters.
Tony, you haven't made reference to me at the moment.
She's over you.
And they had the largest membership, larger membership in the Liberal parties in 2019.
Wow.
And then everybody abandoned it. Not abandoned, but they
Tony
put a
says,
second.
what about independent candidates? Where do they fit in? Obviously, Tony, you weren't listening the whole episode.
Yeah, Tony, you must be cooking at the moment at the time, were you?
Yeah, but again, with independents, you've got to be a superstar. You have to be a councillor for 20 years.
Or you have a lot of them, what the Tills do. Spend the money, spread it around, get all your marketing people, get people on the ground. That's the only time in national independence work.
Or you're a god like Bob Catter.
Or a Ted Mack from 30 years ago, mate.
You're a god.
Yeah.
Well, Ted Mack was a councillor for, wasn't he mayor for a year?
Mayor of North Sydney for a lot of years.
Yeah.
All right, we better finish up because we're at the 1.5 hour mark.
We can keep going.
What else do you want to talk about? I thought you have to go.
I can go for a couple more minutes.
What do you want? Any final comments, Sam?
No, it was a really interesting the long term game of the three minor parties.
Did we cover all the topics you were hoping to cover?
Most of them, yeah.
And did we have enough arguments that you wanted to have?
Not quite.
You want to argue some more?
Yeah. I'm bitching with him about 8-year terms and 4-year terms of Parliament.
Yeah, well,
there needs to be term limits.
No, I disagree with you. I think you're only when you've been there for 8-10 years, you only just learn how the system works.
Well, that's a good thing.
And
we don't want them to learn how the system works.
So therefore, you want the bureaucrats to run the country.
They run it anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, there should be term limits for bureaucrats.
Well, most of them do only last 5. As head department heads, only last 5 years.
Well, that's
they're making $1 million
a
year.
Yeah. The Liberals don't do.
Well, a lot of them were on old pension
we
schemes
started
too.
off, and I just said to Sam, I don't love any politicians enough to want to have an extra year of them. Just like let's just there it is.
I think we should go with sortition. Can't go well. You can go wrong, but very far less possibilities. Because look, it's politics is for sociopaths.
What about you,
90%
Richard?
of them are.
Final comments?
No, just I just think that in the end there'll be a drift, to a more polarized environment. I think the Greens are going to lose a lot of power very shortly when blackouts start becoming more and more common, and that will change the balance quite a lot. And I think
but Green voters won't go back to Liberal Party; they'll go back to Labor Party.
They might become Libertarian. Libertarians.
Oh,
A lot of the
God.
vaccination stuff yielded a lot of people to minor parties. You know, I've got friends that used to be Green voters. Vaccinations, mandates, and everything changed there.
You'd be
Will
surprised.
will they be still rusted on in 12 months' time?
What do you mean rusted on?
Well, I'm saying that they've had their protest vote with the vaccinations.
No, they're
like that.
serious. Their life
Well,
was changed.
I'm trying to say,
You don't forgive that. You don't move
Okay,
on
fair.
from that. It's
I
like
just want-
it changes your life from one place to another.
but will a bloke out in southwestern Sydney who voted the three parties, minor parties that were rusted on Labor or Liberal or Greens, now they're back to normal life. Now will they?
I'm gonna put this to you. Let's imagine we're talking about the future. What's going to happen? Jacinta Price somehow becomes the Prime Minister, and the Liberal Party
Got to
gets back
find her
on
a seat first,
Yeah,
mate.
well, that
Well,
happens. They
well,
find her the seat. She joins the Liberal Party. She's the Prime Minister. They dump net zero. They say we're not going to have misinformation, disinformation. We're not going to have digital ID. We're not going to have a central digital currency. And we're going to be old school liberals. We're going to go back to the core values of the Liberal Party, the Menzies We Believe statement. They get back on track. Will there be any need for the minor parties?
Yes, because they're still the Liberal Party.
You still need the check and balance. And remember the Liberal Party back in 96, 97.
But isn't the check and balance the members within the Liberal Party?
No, they can ignore them. Look, they've changed their whole constitution, and they're still ignoring their members. They're meant to have plebiscites. They're still not having plebiscites. It's like look at what happened before the last election. They're still the Liberal Party.
Coming back to Libertarians,
You can't possibly give them enough of a hard time. They have let down this country more than the Labor Party, because at least they had some sort of idea about what they were doing. The Labor Party's got no idea. So, I mean, they should just be locked up and institutionalized.
Before we get to Jeff, I'm just going to read.
Labor or
I'm
Liberals?
going to read this comment. I'm going to read this comment from Tony, and then I'm going to give Jeff the final say. If I was inclined to be offended by potentially sexist comments like "she must be cooking," I would throw a tangent. The fact is, I am in fact cooking.
I caught you out again. I can read your head from a million miles away.
All right, go for it, Jeff.
We're all screwed. If we don't pull our fingers out. We need to again, we sit around for 2 years and 11 months or 2 years and 10 months and then decide to do something 6 weeks before the election is not going to work. We need to be doing this every day from the day after the previous election. And not just at federal level, but at state, at local level. It's more urgent than ever now. It's not easy street anymore.
Graham saying, Jeff has me looking at the Nationals in a new light.
Oh, nice.
Me too.
I think it's good. What else? I should be positive, I suppose. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. Okay.
And should we get behind a minor party, or should we get behind the big machine?
Both. Do whatever you think is right and easiest for you. So I'm in I'm the taco girl. Why not both? Because one might fail. They both might fail. But even if we all go with one, all get in one boat, and that fails, then we all go down with it. But at least that way, when we're hammering from the outside, and especially with things like majorslast, they know the threat's there, and it will worry them. But if there's no threat there, they will just go and do what they want.
But the main point is you've got to get active.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of time I've gone to a Liberal Party functions, it's like I've probably gone to about half a dozen in the last 5 years. And they always say, "Oh, but we're the only party that can form government." Like, so what?
Yeah.
You're not doing such a great job of forming government at the moment. You're really not putting any gloves on Labor. Am I supposed to be impressed? Am I supposed to get involved with you?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yes, but there will come a time where they'll be the government again.
But I think eventually...
Yeah, and they'll still be the Liberal Party. It's like, unless they actually reform themselves and actually get some idea of who they are and what they stand for.
But they aren't trying to reform themselves.
No, they're not.
They need people to get on board.
No, they're not. They're just
plenty
playing
of
around.
There's plenty of
still.
people in there at the moment that should know that they go to reform, but they won't.
And again, if it's reform at the party level and the local membership level, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if the Prime Minister's walking in and going, "We're doing this, no debate, no argument."
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter if you've got pre-selections when you've got somebody coming in.
I've read stuff Dutton has been trying to do some stuff into, but he can't have heads on states' rights. State branches have overriding to what the federal people are. Dutton can advise and say, "I want this done and that one done to reform the party." But as Matthew Camansoli would say, and other people would say, that it's up to the state branches to fix themselves up.
Yeah, and sorry,
unless there's federal intervention.
Don't forget to pick up your copy of The Light if you can find one. The free newspaper. It's also online. I have an article in this issue on page 11.
There you go.
Called "The Never-Ending Pot Boiler," which is basically about how the climate change global boiling cult will never end unless we stop it.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much,
Thank
Richard.
you,
Thank you, Sam. And thank you
mate.
very much, Jeff,
Much
for being here. We
appreciated.
really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
having you on. Hopefully you can come back in the future as well.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for watching. If you do want to support us, head to Buy Me a Coffee and give us a couple of dollars there if you choose. You can also sign up for, if you enjoy the ex-candidates, you can also head on to Buy Me a Coffee there and sign up for membership. But otherwise, we will see you all next time. Thank you very much for watching.